One of the biggest stories of this past week is that the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, has struck down the legality of the Donald Trump tariffs that he had imposed globally. My name is Steve Kostick. You're listening to Political Blowback. It's wonderful to have you. And I just like to muse a little bit about this event. In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision, Donald Trump displayed a lot of displeasure with the Supreme Court. I believe one of the characteristic words that he used was that it was disgusting. And since that time, a lot has happened. Just as of about 1 o'clock p.m., as of today, Donald Trump has announced, and I read this on the City News website, also announced on 680 News, which is one of Toronto's preeminent news sources for accuracy. They are now reporting that Donald Trump has now increased the global tariffs to 15%. That kind of tells me that, in all likelihood, given the foreknowledge of Donald Trump's temperament, that he got himself very emotionally invested in this Supreme Court decision. I think it's important also to point out the fact that even though the Supreme Court struck it down, according to 680 News, Donald Trump, with respect to the original 10% tariffs that were struck down, came out and said that they were going to continue on with these tariffs, but we're going to select a workaround in terms of trade law and the U.S. Constitution so that they could continue with these tariffs. What that essentially means, at least temporarily, it means that Donald Trump had intended to defy the Supreme Court decision, and that really what the Supreme Court has to say about this does not matter. What should have ostensibly happened is Donald Trump should have froze those tariffs and then sought his workaround mechanism to re-implement them under a different provision of the Constitution as it pertains to trade law. But that's not what he did. He said, no, these are just going to continue. That ostensibly is, at least for the time being, that's called breaking the law. Myself personally, I think that's rather contemptuous on the part of the president to defy the Supreme Court in the manner in which he did. 680 News has, in the interim now, has come out and said, oh, Donald Trump is now going to raise the tariffs to 15% around the globe because he's citing the idea that these countries are taking advantage of the United States. Let me place something in a little bit of context here. If you have a smaller country, for example, like Vietnam, or a country of that size, their population, when compared to the United States, is infinitesimal. Naturally, the United States' propensity to buy more things from Vietnam because of their population is just a part of it's just a part of the system. because the United States has a very significant population, to the tune of 350 million people. So trade imbalances are going to occur. When you're a large and very, very powerful country, there are going to be trade imbalances. Having said that, Donald Trump has essentially turned around and said, okay, we're going to slap these 15% tariffs on all countries. What this does for importers who operate out of the United States is it just makes their skin crawl, and it gives them migraine headaches, and it makes them do face palms. And once again, and this is not the first rodeo, he's done it over and over and over again. Once again, the people in the offices of these trade importers are just doing face palms, and they're just saying, can he just go away, please? Like, how much of this do we have to take? It's whimsical, it's contemptuous, it's not conducive to building a healthy business climate. And I dare say that the whimsical nature of Donald Trump, when it comes to investment in the United States, it makes foreign investors very, very reticent about charging ahead and investing money and pitching their tent in the United States, because the government is so whimsical. One day it's 10% has become now illegal. Pretty much the same day, oh, well, there's going to be a workaround, but we're going to continue operating illegally with these tariffs until we implement a workaround, which they guarantee is coming. And then, one day later, it's now, you know what? I think it should be 15%. And whatever number happens to pop into his head, it's just like, we'll go with that. Let's look at the political ramifications of this. I think it's very, very important that politically this is placed into this context. You have the midterm elections coming up in November. As much as Donald Trump doesn't want to believe this, perhaps, it's a reality. There are people who are going to be vying for positions as senators and as congresspeople within the Republican Party. Donald Trump has, at least to this point, he's optically starting to be viewed as a liability. I mean, and perhaps the proof of that, or suggested proof, is that whenever there are special elections that occur in different jurisdictions, it seems like a pattern is being established that the Democrats, even in solid blue or solid red states, the Democrats are flipping the tables and coming away with a victory. And I'm not so sure that this is supportive of the Democrats as it is in protest of the ridiculous policies of the Trump administration. I mean, they're dropping the ball on so many fronts. They're dropping the ball on immigration and ICE. They're dropping the ball on tariffs, the economy. The latest numbers look horrible. The GDP has really taken a shellacking, and inflation is now creeping back up to 3%. So what this tells us is that Donald Trump has no elixir for that. I think it's also very, very important when you start talking about, these global tariffs and now going to raise them to 15%. you got to put yourself in the shoes of the average American people. And by the way, it's been proven that in a democracy, people tend to vote with their wallet. In other words, how they personally are doing will help determine which way these people vote. And when you look at how things are going economically in the States, the GDP numbers are shrinking. You've got approximately 60% of the people that are living hand to mouth, and many of those people rallied behind Donald Trump and said, okay, Donald, come on and save us and make our economy and make our life better. That's the operative words. Make our life better, please. And, beyond a year of his presidency, there seems to be very, very little optimism about life getting better for people. People are struggling with additional health care costs. They're still struggling with inflation. They're struggling with those high prices, and they're not really seeing any relief. I mean, Donald Trump made a very, very egregious error when he started depicting Biden inflation at its peak, and then saying, "Oh, here's inflation under my administration." Fact of the matter is, by the time Joe Biden left office, inflation was significantly down. Okay, and it was, I'm not going to say eradicated, but it was significantly down. So, the amount of progress that Donald Trump himself has made, when you juxtapose that against 3% inflation, which is the current report, he's made no progress. And people aren't getting any relief in the stores. And what does Donald Trump do? He now says, now there's going to be 15% global tariffs. Who's going to pay those global tariffs? It's going to be the consumer. Because the corporations have one thing in mind, and that is to survive. And if they're fortunate enough to, that is for them to thrive. If we're expecting corporations now to give away 10 to 15% of their profits because they're just such nice people, they're going to pass that along to the consumer. Those midterms are coming up, and the Republican Congress people, they are, I would put money on it, they're starting to feel the heat. Their phones are ringing, their emails are populating, and people are disgruntled, and they're not happy with the progress of this administration. So at some point, Republicans who are running for office, they do have to decide now. Maybe it's gotten to the point, and if it hasn't quite got there yet, I dare say that we're on the doorstep. It's gotten to the point where Republican people running for office are going to have to do the balancing act, and they're going to have to say, okay, these midterms, it's going to be him or it's going to be me. What am I going to do? That's the $64,000 question. And I think Donald Trump tries to wield the big stick, and if there's any persona non grata running for office, he'll just simply say, well, we'll primary you. And that will be the determining factor in helping to keep these people in line. He better hope that works, because one of the political realities is that there is a power of incumbency. So if you have these Republican people in office, and they're going to run again as incumbents, they have a huge advantage. I'm not so sure that Donald Trump would be so wise as to start primarying incumbent people, which is only going to further weaken the party. And so there's a lot of dynamics at play here. And I hope I've given you something to think about. Thanks for tuning in. Please, if you can, we're trying to grow an audience here. I hope you enjoy my musings. I don't know if you agree with them all or disagree, but in any case, please, I invite you to put your comments in and like and share this video, and please subscribe, and that'll help us get our subscriber base up. Thanks so much for watching, and you have a great weekend.